The topic of discussion today is Marxism still relevant today? This talk is inspired by Lenin's 1913 pamphlet, The Three Sources and Three Component Parts of Marxism. I'll start off by giving a brief description of what I understand Marxism as, drawing from various sources, including the one I've just mentioned. Then I'll proceed to argue why it remains relevant to this day, despite all the criticism leveled against it by the mainstream commentators. Marxism for me is the theory and practice of the emancipation of the working class, and so forth. Foremost, it answers as to how the working class can free itself from the clutches of the current economic system, capitalism, that is, overthrow its representatives, the capitalists. Marx in the Communist Manifesto says the emancipation of the working class is the act of the working class itself, but in the same breath, he writes about the need for a vanguard that represents the advanced section of the working class. So, how can we reconcile this seemingly contradictory condition? Because it seemingly does seem like contradiction. We have to understand there's an uneven consciousness in the working class, sometimes because of the heavy influence, mostly because of the heavy influence of ruling class ideology. It can hold reactionary ideas, and sometimes when in reality it differs from the ruling class ideology, it may hold very revolutionary ideas. It is the work of the vanguard party to steer workers into revolutionary ideas. Then, so in fact, there's no contradiction there, but an expose of the contradictions of the prevailing system. The contradiction of capitalism lies in the fact that those who do all the labor have nothing, and those who don't work have everything. So workers ilk out a living whilst the capitalists live off the lajees pro- produced by those same workers, though they themselves don't work at all, the capitalists. This has held since the beginning of the capitalist mode of production from its advent in the 15th century, and it still holds to this very day. To this day, it is this fact that also makes workers revolutionary, and there are examples of this in the past, and even the present. In the past, we can look at events like the Paris Commune of 1871, which inspired Marx to write his Civil War in France. And then there's the 1917 Russian Revolution, where for the first time in history, workers were able to holistically overthrow the rulers and establish their own government. Recently, there have been revolutions in the form of the Arab Spring of 2011, and more recently, the Sudanese Revolution in 2017, which what has been missing in the last two revolutions is a workers' party that ensures that workers hold on to power amidst reaction from the ruling class in those countries. Another key feature of capitalism, which Marx examined, was that of crisis and how this too lends workers into a revolutionary direction. Economic crisis continue to bedevil capitalism, with the harshest in recent times being the 2008 financial crash that landed in the US alone to 10 million workers being unemployed. So even if workers are being sold the idea of capitalism being the best of all possible systems, it reveals itself every now and then to be the opposite. The main reason behind crisis is the tendency of the rate of profit to fall. This happens due to an increase in the organic composition of capital. That is to say, as capitalists compete for a larger share of profit, of the profits within the system. They invest more in constant capital than they do in labor, which is variable capital. The problem here is that labor is the value creator. And so in the long run, profits tend to fall in investment along with it. And this puts the system in crisis. Marx said this is what would lead to the downfall of capitalism. But also there are countervailing tendencies to this which the capitalists can adopt, or they do adopt. The first is to increase the rate of exploitation of the workers. That is, pay workers even less for the labor they carry out. The second is investing in more constant capital, which I've already explained, further causes crisis.